I'm gonna pull up this script so I get it right. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Dale Corvino. I am the co-chair of Manhattan.
Can you give us, oh, Janine, there is an email from Rob and he needs a phone number to call.
Okay, I'll send
Rob is not present?
No, he can't connect right now.
Okay, I'll wait for Rob to show up.
I don't think you have a quorum, my friend.
Oh, one.
Oh, David Solnick is here. P.
Patty, David Solnick, Jeffrey.
Akra is here.
David Warren's here. I saw him. Raksha, our new member, is here.
Is Colin right?
I think we do have a.
Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
We need 9.
Do we need 8?
9.
Yeah.
We need 9?
9, yeah.
Oh boy,
Okay.
we're a bigger committee than ever.
Yeah.
All right, so we need, okay, so just so I can explain to everybody, in order for this to be an official meeting, we need a quorum. We can still meet and discuss topics, but we can't take a vote. They would have to be just presented to the full board meeting as recommendations instead of voted upon items. So hopefully we'll achieve quorum shortly. And, oh, Brett's here.
Brett's here?
Yeah, I see Brett's name.
Well, that's a good trick. You send a name and you don't show up. Okay.
And then if we can get Rob connected, one of our committee members seems to be having technical difficulties, so we're going to give him a minute.
By the way, I'm here also, Pete.
Oh, Pete's here also. Okay.
So that could give you a quorum, no?
I think that makes quorum.
Yeah.
Why does it say Janine under Pete's name? Under Pete's window.
Janine's here 5 times.
I guess Janine facilitated some connections and.
Yeah, so I think I gave everyone the same link and it was under my name. So just rename
Okay,
yourself.
all right.
Oh.
All right. If you guys have the capability to go, well, Pete mostly, because Viren is now Viren. If you could change your, I think you can go in and edit your name so that
I
you.
hit the 3 dots.
Yes, under, I forgot.
I don't really know how to do it myself, but.
If you toggle your mouse top right of your picture, there's 3 dots. Click on them, and there's a rename option.
Okay, I'm gonna try that.
Thanks for the technical assist, Jeffrey.
All right, I'm gonna give it a shot. Hold on.
But we do have.
Might be hard to do that on a phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm visual.
So,
I can rename you. You just have to point out who you are.
yeah, Pete Diaz. Okay.
Okay.
Rob is there now?
I'm trying to get the phone number because you had to register ahead of time. So I'm trying to find the phone number. It's a little tricky.
Okay. All right. It's no rush.
If you go, Janine, if you go to participants, you'll see that on the bottom you can invite. And I think it may allow you to copy the link. And then if you can just put it on Notepad or something. Or if you send people Outlook invitations. I don't remember. Okay, here it is. Here.
Oh, Pete is Pete now. That's
Here's
really
Oh,
good
wow.
progress.
Now I know who I am.
All right, shall we get started?
Here's the phone numbers, Janine. Yeah, I put it in chat.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I think
Welcome.
she's got it. Yeah. All right. right, I'm going to read this script because it concerns how we conduct ourselves in Zoom meetings a little bit. Okay, so hi everyone, Dale Corvino, co-chair Manhattan Transportation Planning Committee of CB4, and this is our monthly meeting. And the agenda was publicized and is available on the CB4 website. Okay, per the governor's executive order, we are running community board meetings remotely, and it is being recorded and transcribed. Recording the meeting will be posted on our YouTube page. Here's how the meeting will run. Everybody besides the speaker or presenter will be muted during the meeting. Members of the public who have joined through the online link will be able to ask questions and make brief statements during the public portion on the item after the presentation and after the committee has had an opportunity to ask clarifying questions. After the presentation is over, I will check with the committee to see if they have questions. Committee members can signify they have questions by either using the raised hand button or the, or if you're calling into the meeting, please use *9 to raise your hand. After the committee has considered the issue, we will take questions and statements from the public. I think Janine is here to somewhat facilitate that process. And a member of the committee will report on any testimony or correspondence that we have received prior. And we have received prior testimony for this meeting for a couple of the agenda items. If a member of the public wants to ask a question or make a brief statement on an agenda item, you can press your raised hand button on your screen. If you're on the phone again, you use that *9 function. Following public's comment portion, the committee will be in discussion and conclude with the decision to vote on a recommendation. And when the agenda is finished, the meeting will be adjourned. Okay. So hopefully that explains how we are conducting these meetings via Zoom. It's been a learning process for all of us. Okay, so as I said, I'm co-chair of the committee. I'm going to introduce my co-chair, and then we're also going to introduce the members of the committee. But Christine, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with the newer members of the committee because we do have, are both our new members here?
The other one.
Oh, Sarah, yeah, okay.
He has a sore throat.
So periodically we have new members coming on board as there's turnover, and we have 2 new members assigned. Unfortunately, one of them could not be with us tonight because of illness, but I'm going to go to Raksha, who's our newest CB4 member and a member of this committee, so she can say hello and introduce herself.
Great. Hi guys, I'm Raksha. I use she, her pronouns. So like Dale said, I'm new to community board for this session, I guess, and I live near Hudson Yards and I work at Google. So I live and I work in the district, and I'm really excited to learn a lot this year on transportation.
Great, thank you, Raksha, and welcome. And now I'll go to Christine, then we'll go to the rest of the committee members as I see them.
Christine Berthe, co-chair. And Dale, you may want to ask the elected officials and Colleen to introduce themselves also.
Yes, I'll do that after the committee members, sure thing, because I see all of our electeds representatives. Patty.
Hi everyone, Patty Carnival here. I've been on the transportation committee for about 2 years and CB4 for 3 years.
Hi, Brett, say hello.
Hi, Brett Ferfer, member of the committee since 2008.
Wow. Jeffrey.
Hi, everybody. Jeffrey LaFrancois, CB4 Transportation Committee member and first vice chair of the board.
Viren.
Hi, everyone. Brian Brambert, member of the CB4 Transportation Committee for last 2 years. Live in Chelsea, architect, urban designer.
David Warren.
Hi, I'm on Transportation Committee and also ACES. I also live in the next building over from Dale.
34th Street represented.
And I've been on the board for, I think about 10, 11 years. I don't remember.
Wow. Okay, Pete Diaz, as Pete Diaz.
That's me. Pete Diaz from CB4, of course. Been living, what is it, a member of the board for about 12 years now. Live in the Hell's Kitchen area and also a member of the Housing, Health, and Human Resources Committee, Services.
Great, thanks, Pete. David Solnick.
Hi, I've been a member of the Transportation Committee for 6 years, I think. Also on the the Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee.
Do we have other board members or committee members who are here? Did Rob get on?
Not yet.
Okay, I think those are all the committee members we have currently. Some may join us later. Now I'll also go to our elected representatives to say hello. We have Carl Wilson from Speaker Johnson's office.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Carl Wilson with the Speaker's office.
And then we have Maya Berlo from State Senator Brad Hoylman's office.
Oh, hi, folks. Maya from Senator Hoylman's office. Nice to see you all.
And Matt is here from Assemblymember Gottfried's office.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, and we have Emily from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Bartusik from Assemblymember Rosenthal's.
Are those all? And we have Colleen from DOT, our stalwart DOT representative.
Colleen Chattagoon from City DOT. Nice to see everyone tonight.
Did I miss any representatives of electeds? Sorry if I did. So generally speaking, a lot of the district overlaps with Assemblymember Gottfried's district, and Assemblymember Rosenthal we overlap a small portion to the north of the district, just for everybody's orientation. Okay, let's get to the agenda items. Give me 1 minute to pull up the agenda. Okay, that is not the agenda. Sorry, this shuffling.
Well,
Sorry.
I can set up the first item if you want.
I just pulled it up. Okay, so the first item is we're going to have a discussion of the and possibly a vote on the 14th Street Busway.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this subject was prompted by the mayor's announcement that the busway was made permanent.
Sorry, folks, Rob Walker here.
Ah, bravo, Rob. Welcome. So even though there was a process which had been agreed with the elected officials on evaluating for 1 year or 1.5 years, I can't recall, it was abruptly announced that it was permanent. And, the discussion here is that from the beginning, the community has been asking for a lot of mitigation measures on the side streets. And it is not clear from the announcement whether those mitigation measures are now irrelevant because it has been announced as permanent, even though we know that the situation on the side street have not been resolved. They are still a fact. So I'd like to open to the public, but at the same time express my wish that we sent a letter asking for the mitigation measures to be implemented, even though it has been, because we had commitment that they would do it. So I just want to reiterate that and ask our elected officials to help in getting those mitigation measures installed.
Right, and we should also mention that, a couple of things. We did get testimony, written testimony in advance of this meeting. We had a letter from a resident of 14th Street who is in favor of the busway becoming permanent, and also is also in favor of another item that was in the mayor's announcement that hasn't gotten too much focus, which is to extend a proposed extension of the busway east towards Avenue C. And then we also have a letter from a resident of 16th Street who is expressing the concerns that we've heard numerous times from numerous quarters of the district about traffic overspilling into the side streets as a result of the busway. So
I think there was another letter in support also.
I might have missed that, but I did see, I know I saw at least 1 for and 1 against in our testimony. Ginny, was there a third letter that came in?
Yes, that was from Jaya, right?
Oh, yeah, it didn't wind up in the Dropbox, but we did get one in to our emails. That's correct. So we have some testimony in opposition to the permanent, making the busway permanent, and we have some testimony in favor of the, and then with that caveat that the mayor's proposal contextualizes the 14th Street busway with a number of other out of our district initiatives on major thoroughfares in the Bronx and Queens, but also there is mention of extending the 14th Street busway as well. That doesn't really concern us either because it's out of our district, but just for context. Do any of the committee members have like comments or questions?
If I can raise my hand, I mean, it would be great if we had some kind of data or something from City DOT that was justifying one way or the other, that, you know, that saying that there isn't really the spillover, or, you know, what's the rationale behind this? Are they finding the buses are faster? Like, that's something before we get this made permanent. I mean, it would be great for us to get some kind of metrics.
Yeah, we have that information. We received 2 reports, and both reports show that the performance of the bus on the busway is very, very effective, has improved a lot. But it also shows that 16th and 17th Street are bearing the brunt of increased traffic. And the reports confirm what the residents have said.
Problem with additional reporting is the COVID impact, right?
But it was, no, the second report was still before COVID.
Right, I'm saying, I mean, we're not going to get much more
right.
We're not going to get much more meaningful reporting anytime soon because of COVID impacts.
Right, which is possibly why they said, well, this is not needed, but then there were some other items that need to be addressed as part of that.
So are there any more comments or questions from board?
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
The busways, I think, unfortunately, has been a resounding success. There's no argument there. I think with the side streets, that we got to work out the problem. I think I suggested this prior to the pandemic, but I think now with the pandemic, you know, never, like Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. I think maybe we might be able to get the cameras on those side streets, so only traffic, no through traffic would be able to go down those streets, because the trucks, I believe, had been going down those streets and they're not supposed to. So I think maybe if we got the cameras there, that would alleviate at least the trucks. As far as the motor cars, if somebody comes up with a good solution, I think I would be open to that. I think obviously the committee would, but I definitely think we should push for cameras to monitor the trucks going down the street that is not a truck route.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board members?
Let's go to the public.
And then we can open it to the public.
How is that working, Janine?
So I have David's hand up, and then Paul Gronke, Alan, Roberta.
Okay, so do you see the order in which people?
I don't see anything.
Yeah, if you go under participants, everyone comes up and the hands go up in the order.
Oh, I see.
Okay. I'm just gonna go. I don't see how everybody. I'm just gonna go to all the people whose hands are up. So I'm gonna start with Roberta, just because I see her first. Roberta.
Well, I just have a couple of issues. The first issue is I don't understand how this was made permanent before we had a chance to talk about it and go through all the necessary procedures. That's not what we all agreed to. That's number one. Number two, a lot of the things that were done because the L train was going to be shut down and we were expecting a lot of street traffic. So they expanded the sidewalk on 14th Street between 7th and 8th. And yet there is no expanded street traffic. It just narrowed the street itself. And so it's going to make for more traffic for no reason. And the third thing is, yes, we are getting more traffic on 16th Street. And this is the same issue we have talked about ad nauseum. And again, we have no cameras and no enforcement. We have a law that says no through traffic. It is totally unenforced. So we're back pretty much at square one, except we don't have a bus going across our street. Other than that, we're in the same place.
Roberta,
I'm sorry.
I just had one question. Would you say that the traffic loads that you're seeing on 16th Street include trucks using 16th for through traffic?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes before March.
Oh, I see.
I mean, because now there's, in general, there's so much less traffic. But that definitely when, before we shut down, there were a lot of trucks going through.
Right. So just to provide a little more context with this, 14th Street is a truck route, and through truck traffic should be using 14th Street and not side streets like 16th Street for through traffic. However, deliveries, of course, should be and are permitted to go on the street, but they shouldn't be allowed to use it as a through street. So the hope and the expectation was that by limiting the traffic on 14th Street to buses and trucks, the trucks would say, well, our best bet is 14th Street now and not use side streets as through streets. And again, we're in a bit of a data vacuum because of COVID related impacts, but it would be interesting to know, based on data, if trucks are in fact using the smaller cross streets as through traffic when 14th Street is open and available to them.
Let's go to the next person.
Do we have the next person in the public
Paul.
is Paul. I don't see you, Paul.
Yeah, he was here 1 second ago. His hand is up.
Paul Gronke?
Paul, you're on mute, right?
No, I'm not. I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, go right ahead.
But until Dale gives me the
How are you?
go by. Good. How are you, Dale?
Good.
So yeah, to Roberta's point,
oh, there you are.
we were continuing to get trucks up through March, and we are continuing to get trucks today. Part of this challenge is the definition of what's local and what's not local. Local, from us, the residents on the block, our perspective on local is that a local means that they're delivering on our block. Unfortunately, I believe by DOT's regs, local means maybe the next block. Okay, so we still get a number of trucks that are going further down on 16th Street beyond 6th Avenue, or 16th Street to get to 17th Street, or 19th Street, or wherever. I mean, there's still a significant truck traffic on our block, and there's been little to mitigate any of the traffic at all, as we had hoped for in our discussions with DOT. I also agree with Roberta that this is being unfortunately we're in a data glut, as has been mentioned, but the it looks like this is being rammed down our throats with no data analysis as to the impacts. And this does not make us very happy. On the whole, I'm pleased with the 14th Street transition. On the whole, extending it, don't have a problem with that. But there is the mitigation problem. And we do have trucks.
And Paul, you're speaking specifically about 16th Street?
Specifically about 16th Street.
Okay, as is Roberta, okay.
Of course, efforts to develop a shared block on 16th Street would certainly help mitigate this traffic.
Right.
Different agenda item.
Alan, our friend Alan.
Hi, Alan Ossum, a member of Community Board 4, I co-chair the ACES committee. But this evening I'm speaking as a resident of West 22nd Street and the issue of truck traffic, and perhaps Colleen can clarify something. I've been informed that trucks can use a street even though there's a sign there that says no through traffic if they're making a turn at the corner of the end of the block. Is that your understanding? Is that
no.
How the no through traffic works?
No, that's not how it works. I mean, with trucks making deliveries, if there is a sign that says no trucks except for local deliveries, that is, you have to be making a delivery on that block to travel through that street. If not, no other truck should be traveling through that street. You have to have a specific purpose to go down that street, and that is to make a delivery.
Okay. And if the signage is an old signage that doesn't say deliveries only, just says no through traffic, is there a difference on that?
Wait a minute, no through traffic means anybody.
Yeah.
No truck through traffic. I mean, there's
no truck traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So no such thing as making a right turn or a left turn.
It's 7 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I also see that Matt from Assemblymember Gottfried's office has his hand up. Matt, did you want to weigh in?
Yes. So last week, Assemblymember Gottfried sent a letter to DOT expressing opposition to this move. I believe that the community input process that was to be throughout the entire pilot was hard fought for and should be respected. And this busway was often talked about as being a model for future busways, which could be wonderful for other parts of the district and the city. But to really be a strong model, it should also have a model community input process to make it the best busway possible. CB4 was CC'd on that letter. So when we get a response from DOT, you should also see that response.
Could you send us the final letter? I've not seen it.
Yep, absolutely.
The final that went out. I saw some draft, but I didn't see the final. Right.
Sure.
So, I mean, what I like to do is send a letter which recap the major mitigation measure we had asked for, and ask for a commitment to make them, to implement them, and copy all the elected officials and ask, Dick's office and all the other offices to really fight for us on that, because that's something that needs to be done. Yes.
We have so we have a letter proposed. Do we have a second?
But Paul is raising his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Could I just jump in with a really short one? We had also written a letter to DOT about signage, specifically about signage on the corner of 16th.
Yes.
About the trucks. Okay, I think that was a separate letter that was.
We put it in, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that got included.
I think what we would do in this instance, Paul, is refer to our previous correspondence on the topic and make sure that it is all that make it clear that our concerns then continue to be our concerns.
Yeah. So that's my proposal.
I would like to add to that proposal that once again the cameras, and we should be very forceful in that, because otherwise people are not going to obey the law. This would put some teeth into it, and we really need to get not only the DOT but our electeds on the bandwagon to really put pressure on it. Hopefully, the block association will also will back us
David,
up.
I don't disagree with that, except that camera to enforce trucks is not something that is done anywhere in the city, and I'm not even sure we are permitted to do that. Colleen, do we have a permission to do that? No, so this is a much bigger discussion here. You know, it's like, okay, yes, I agree with you. We should be fighting for enforcement by camera for trucks, but what I'd like to do here is not open a new front on this battle, but go back to our basic requirements, which have been for the last 2 years, say, okay, do the busway, but you must do mitigation. And I want to stay on that.
Paul Gronke, I just read a piece of what he wrote. I didn't read the whole thing in the chat. Was saying maybe we could, if I'm reading correctly, maybe we could be a test case though for this, especially since we have the support of the block.
I think it belongs to a different letter, because here, you know, it would be too easy for the DOT to say, we can't do camera, we can't do anything. You know, it's just, I want to really pin them down to, you told us all along that yes, you will be listening to us and you will do the mitigation. And we have asked for those mitigation things for 2 years now. So I think I would prefer not to include that in the.
Okay, I'll go with that then. Okay, fine.
We have we have a letter.
Do we have a motion first?
We have a motion.
Hello?
Christine, you can make the motion. I need a.
No, I can't make a motion. I'm the co-chair, but you can.
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, Colin's here too.
Oh, Colin's here. Okay, good.
Colin Wright is also a committee member. Thank you for your second. All right, so we have on the floor, we have a motion to draft a letter to DOT and the electeds to reference our prior requests for traffic mitigation along the side streets impacted by the 14th Street busway, and to emphasize that we continue to request these mitigating strategies. And shall we take a vote on that letter? All committee members in favor, you can raise your hand or vocalize your support.
Yes.
Is anyone opposed to this letter? Is anyone present not eligible from the committee? Okay. Janine, there's also a vote sheet. Should we be?
I'm doing it.
We're going to do that. Okay.
I'm doing that.
Great. Okay. It's not like a Google Doc that we're going to do on our own. Okay.
No. Is anyone abstaining? Sorry, just one more.
Did we have any abstaining or present not eligible votes? Was everybody in favor? Okay. All right. Now, on to the next item. Sorry, let me.
What is that?
Here we go. Okay. We have, I believe I saw our fellow here.
Maybe David can take the lead on that.
Yes, but Shruti, is Shruti here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Shruti. Okay.
Hi.
The next agenda item is a project that was undertaken by our planning fellow, Shruti, I'm going to make sure I get your name right, Shruti Punjabi, which is a sanitation plan for our district's residential buildings. And David Solnick has been working with Shruti on this initiative. So I don't know, are you presenting, Shruti, or is David?
I'm going to be presenting.
Okay, great. I'm handing it to you, Shruti.
We need to share the screen. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, excellent.
So, hi everyone, I am Shruti. I am an urban planner and a recent graduate from New York University, and I've been working with Jesse and David on understanding the situation of the solid waste management system within our community board. We had this presentation with the land use committee last week, and because there are overlapping elements where we need to understand how we need to do certain interventions on areas on the right of ways which are governed by the Department of Transportation. It's also important to understand and take input from the Transportation Committee and see if we can start some of these debates and understand how we can manage our waste better when it's about when it's within a building, and then when it comes out on the street, and then when it's moved from the DSNY truck. So this entire system, how it works. We've started working since September 2019, and our goal was to focus on the high-rise residential developments, that is basically buildings which are more than 300 units, and see how these units right now manage their waste. We got a chance to do some key person interviews with a member of DSNY, some interviews with some of the building staff, sustainability teams of some of the buildings who are doing really well in terms of how they're managing their waste, not just in terms of how it is within the building, but how it also comes out on the street, the entire flow of it. So this basically is a summary of understanding what is happening right now and what can we do better to manage our waste as we move forward. Next, please. So this is like a common site, as we all know, within our community board, because of the amount of waste that comes out on streets, let's say from a building which has 800 plus units. And when we have so many of such high-rise buildings within our community board, I think it's important to target our resources and debates towards understanding how can we manage it better, rather than having streets which are unhygienic, obstructed, and have all sorts of issues when it's about seasons as well, when it rains, when it snows, how this waste is just like lying around and creating problems for the pedestrians as well as the residents. Next, please. So as I just said, that our focus here was just to understand the waste management within the high-rise residential buildings. So our focus was just to limit how waste will be managed in the new high-rise buildings, because of course in the current situation we have a lot of different kinds of situations where there are access issues, the loading deck is not at the right place. But with going forward, we know that this is an issue already, and with residential densities already increasing, it's important that we discuss about this and we find out a way to solve this problem. Next, please. So I was just saying that we do have an increase in the residential density, and from 2000 to 2010 as well, as the stats show that there is almost an increase of 34% per hectare within our community board. So we know that we have all these new population residents coming within our community board, and we have to really understand how do we provide infrastructure facilities which are already under pressure, and how do we improve them and make them efficient enough that it is able to sustain the burden of all the new people who are coming now inside our community board. Next, please. So just to better understand the different types of interventions that are done to manage waste overall in a system, we've found out that we look at in-building interventions, which are basically enforced by Department of Buildings, Department of Standards, and appeals, where they have to ensure that the developer is following certain criteria for managing waste within the building. But also the second type of interventions, which is the on-street interventions, where we need to understand that where does the waste go once it comes out on the street? Does it have to lie down on the sidewalk? Do we have a space somewhere designated for it? How much space do we need? So we need to have that kind of discussions now with the type of density that is increasing, and to ensure that the board, that the the community board, the area remains hygienic, smooth for pedestrian flow. So these are the two types of basic interventions that we need to focus on. Next, please. Some of the basic features of these interventions include, if we talk about something in building, it's about what is the bin collection and storage requirement, what should be the size of the storage room, for how long should the waste be stored inside the building, how is the waste stored, how is it brought down from a 60-floor building, what are the front end collection requirements, versus when we talk about on street, there are features like where is that waste stored, how much space do we need to actually store some amount of already quantified waste that is coming out from high-rise residential buildings, and then who's going to clean these waste storage spaces on street, and then how is it collected, how does this entire system work cohesively. Next, please. So we looked at some of the case studies which have similar scale, similar density to New York, and then also have similar growth patterns. And we found out that they are using different kinds of ways, different ways to like manage their waste and disposal network. As we go ahead, we'll be talking about some of the on-street and the details of some of the on-street and in-building interventions that are taken up by some of these case studies. Next, please. So just to briefly run through some of the in-building interventions, we know that they have Toronto, Seattle, the British standards, all these places have very specific detailed guidelines about how the waste is administered within the building. Next, please. They target on issues like what are the diversion options. They detail them out. They talk about if this is the size, this should be if we should use chutes, how is the waste moving within the building, where is it stored, so what are the different options, and it gives us details about how these things should be done to the developers as a prerequisite that they need to follow in order to get a building approval. Next, please. They also have requirements in terms of what size of storage bins we should use. They also have a very specific guideline. If we see the British standards, they talk about how the waste should be quantified, which is something that is surprisingly not done right now in New York, where we do not really have any criteria to say that if there is a building which has 800 units, this is the amount of waste that's going to come out of it and is going to be lying down on our streets. So we don't really know that kind of statistics. So the planning that is done doesn't really account for that number or that quantity, which indicates indirectly or directly that there is an haphazard system. Next, please. They also have all these building standard requirements also have details about the waste storage room, what size it should be, safety of it, location of it, access of it, all these details which are very important when it comes to maintaining utilities within high-rise buildings, especially the solid waste. Next, please. Again, the loading area requirements, which in case of New York are under the zoning resolution code, I believe. And then there are very specific guidelines on how the loading decks should be designed, what material should be used, what safety levels are needed, how would that be accessible to public utility like DSNY in our case, and whether they'll be allowed inside the building or whether the waste is administered in a way that it comes on the streets and smoothly flows through the DSNY tracks. Next, please. So here we also looked at some of the design alternatives when we talk about what's happening on street, which is something that I believe we should focus on when we are addressing to the transport committee. And I feel that it's important to understand that the design, the location, the size, the space that is allocated to these containers, which should ideally store waste rather than having the sprawl of these bags, hundreds and thousands of bags on the streets. It's very important to look at how they've made these interactive, more suitable, contextual specifications and design elements on for storing waste on street. Next, please. These are some of the elements which basically explain how efforts are made to also account for the aesthetics of this space, how interactive it is, how well does it dwell in the current characteristic of the area. Next, please. So after looking at all these different case studies, what we tried to do was to look at the current disposal standards that we have for New York, and what we found out was a lot of gaps in terms of understanding if we have any detail about the size of the waste storage rooms or even the bins within the building, or any detail about how the waste will be managed once it's coming out on the street. There were a lot of gaps. We did not have any dimensions or any waste quantification equation which could help us to know that this is something that is going to be produced thrice a week from this particular building, and we need to account for that, and both within the building and on the street. Next, please. These are some of the important stakeholders. One of the important stakeholders, although I apologize, we don't have here is Department of Transportation, because now it's very important to understand and build these discussions where we start understanding how when we talk about storing this waste on street, where will it be located? And I think Department of Transportation will play a very important role in understanding what kind of space allocation will be required, how will this space be monitored, what will be used to store the waste, and all those discussions. Next, please. This is just basically a street section which shows that our typical NYC street has a lot of different people and stakeholders and agencies where they own and operate for certain sections within the entire street. So this is just giving us an idea of who owns what part of the street, and how we need to have a discussion which is more cohesive with the Department of Buildings, the Department of Transportation, the Department of City Planning, and all of these need to come together and have this discussion about the entire system of waste management. Next, please. So just as recommendations, something which is very straightforward and that was thought of as the first option was allowing DSNY trucks to enter the upcoming and in some cases also existing high-rise residential developments to collect waste, which would completely solve the problem of waste coming out on streets, because then the DSNY trucks will be accessing the buildings. And then there was this other thought where when we went in the details of this first idea, we found that there were a lot of different kinds of resistance factors coming from the building staff, the developers, and all those places where they had certain types of problems. So we looked into another solution which is more intensive and which requires a range of steps that need to be done over time in order to address this problem. Next, please. So just to talk about, if we allow DSNY trucks to enter the building units, we do have a lot of advantages that the streets will be clear first. Although this cannot be done for all the existing developments, it will be something that can be proposed for upcoming developments. We will have the ways that we need to look out for the existing developments, which is all still going to be on the street and is not going to be managed the way it should be in containers and packed spaces. There were a lot of drawbacks or resistance, I can say, where the building staff was not okay with allowing anyone, any like DSNY trucks to basically access their loading deck area, which is something that apparently very precious and special because it allows them to conduct a lot of important activities, and they were scared that DSNY would not be careful and might lead to some damage, and all these kinds of discussions were taking place. So this is an idea that we can all think of and we can see if it works, although as we can see in the presentation, there are some set of advantages and some set of drawbacks attached to it. Next, please. One of the most basic and one of the most important requirements right now for us is to understand how are we managing waste inside a community board which has number of high-rise buildings without even knowing what kind of quantity is coming out on streets. So it is very surprising to know that we don't really have any waste quantification standards or equations which help us to know, or even ask the developers to give us a number which is going to tell us that this is the amount of waste that this building is going to generate, and we need to plan for that both in the building and on the street. So this is just basically showing us, the map on the left basically shows us, if you see the maroon grid, it's the grid of our community board, and it's showing us, if the maroon grid is basically telling us that the amount of waste on that particular grid sidewalk that comes out thrice a week is almost more than 3.8 pounds for per linear foot of sidewalk. So you can imagine how much of a stretch does it takes when it is about waste coming out from more than 2,000 plus units in that particular grid. Next, please. This is basically talking about the need for understanding a system which is not just talking about doing interventions on the street in isolation or in building in isolation. As I remember, on March 11th to 2020, the Deputy Commissioner of Department of Sanitation wrote or mentioned in an article in, I think it was published by the New York Times or something, where they were talking about very similar interventions that they're planning to do, where they want to now start accounting for the building waste and how is it managed inside the building. And also another important aspect of that article was containerization of waste, so that when it comes out on the streets, it's not coming out in forms of large piles of garbage black bags, but it's coming out as in a systematic way in wheeled containers and stored inside containers on the street. So we need to account for that, and we need to, although that article did not really talk much about how these interventions are connected, and I think that's something that's very important, because they don't work in isolation, and we really need to think about how this entire thing comes out as a system and is tied together. Next, please. This is just a graphic which shows us how the waste should be managed. When it comes out from the buildings, get compacted, it gets carried out by the building staff and wheeled with the help of wheeled containers, and is stored on the right of way, not on the sidewalk, in a designated space, which should be carved out from the existing on-street parking spaces. And this is something where we need to discuss more and take ideas from the Transport Committee and the Department of Transportation, and understand how much and how will we do this entire procedure of storing the waste on the right of way and not blocking the sidewalks and taking away space from the pedestrians. And these could be, as I said, that the initiative should go hand in hand. Until and unless we don't know how much quantity of waste will be coming out from the buildings, we would never be able to plan for the amount of space that would be needed on streets to actually store this waste. So this is just an idea of how things should work. Next, please. Some of the amendments, as part of this project, we thought of understanding what can we do, and we figured out that there needs to be some amendments that need to go in the Department of Building Code, the Building Code, the NYC Building Code, and the Zoning Resolution Code, and the DSNY rules and regulations. And all of these need to talk to each other in order to account how the waste is moving thoroughly from the private property to the public space, and then through the DSNY trucks to the transfer stations. So it's very important to have specific and clear instructions about the location, size, design, and safety of waste storage within the building, which we do not have right now, giving a leverage to the building developers to decide for themselves how much space do they want to give to a public utility over something which is over profit mending square footage. That creates a problem because there's no guideline, I'm sorry. Next, please. Also, one more thing which we should talk about is containerization, and it's very important that with having so many high-rise residential buildings now coming up in different parts of Manhattan, especially in our neighborhood, it's important that we talk about containerization and we address this in a way that we have sidewalks which are not meant for storing garbage bags, which are meant for people to walk smoothly, and we need to account for that and see how we can containerize waste both within the building and it's how smoothly it can flow out on the street. Another thing that we need to address is about waste quantification, and I think I've talked a lot about that. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. We have an equation, we have all different kinds of numbers to actually compute, of course, with the help of relevant agencies to compute this equation and have this sort of mandate for developers to give us this quantification in terms of what's going to be produced by their building and how we can plan for it. Next, please. This basically is talking about, further, we also discussed that we need to mandate design guidelines for the construction and access of loading area. We need to see how we can try and make it easier for the building staff to bring out the waste, because now we'll be talking not about garbage bags which could be just carried on hand. We're talking about wheeled containers which need to be moved out. So we need to also ensure that the location of the details and the guidelines about how and where should the loading area be located, and if it's accessible, who it should be accessible to, is very important, and we need to address that and include them, just like Toronto, Bridgestone, and Seattle, all of them do already. Lastly, something very important that we need to do, next please, I think it is, this is just a summary of the different things that we just talked about and the different departments and how they need to play a role to make this proposal come to life. Next please. Yes, so for now, we need to talk about understanding how the upcoming residential developments can be made more efficient in terms of solid waste management, and also this specifically could be done by mandating a submission of a solid waste storage and access checklist, which gives the developers a list of things that they need to follow in order to get a building approval when it comes in front of the different committees within the board, which basically details out the different guidelines related to the waste storage and entire waste storage system within the building, as well as how it's going to come out on the street. And I think as of now, I know that Seattle has a similar checklist, and it's very detailed, and it is something that is also a prerequisite for getting an approval for the development. So that is something that we need to focus on. And also on the side, we need to design these amendments in the building codes. And more than that, when we talk about waste, I just said that these need to go hand in hand, the discussion of in-building and on-street interventions. So we need to start having these discussions, as right now we are in this transportation committee, that how will we manage waste when it comes out on the street? What kind of storage space do we need? What would be the material used? How many of storage spaces will be needed? And so on and so. So next, please. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trudy. It's my second time seeing the presentation since I'm in the land use committee, and I find it really comprehensive and very useful to think about the problem with respect to the building typologies that you outlined. Do we have, Janine, can we close the shared screen and go back so I can see more? Yes, thank you so much. Okay, do we have any comments or questions from the committee on Shrudi's presentation?
I have a few.
Yeah, Christine, go ahead.
Yeah. So it does. You're not talking in that presentation a lot about city planning. Is there anything in the zoning that he's addressing the waste management?
In the zoning resolution code, which is, it touches upon the specifications of the building, which would be important for the movement of waste, which is basically the loading area and the location of it and where should it be. Because we have a lot of mixed use buildings inside, and we know that with mixed use, we have probably the ground floor, the first floor as commercial. So having that understanding of how the loading dock is designed and where is it constructed is something that comes under the zoning resolution.
I understand, but I'm talking about, you know, for example, the size of the garbage room, et cetera, does that, and the reason I'm raising that is that if you go in the zoning, you will notice that when it comes to parking, there are chapters and verses of what should be parked, the lengths of the cars, how to calculate everything, etc. So it seems that maybe there is an opportunity here to make a parallel and say, you know, we want the same level of detail that you do to parking, put it on garbage, because, you know, that's one observation, that they have gone out of their way to measure everything about parking, but garbage, nobody cares about it. So I think we need to rebalance those two things and say, you are not thinking about the right thing. And in the DOB documentation, there is enough specificity or not?
No, so the DOB is again talking about, it does talk about having a waste storage room, but that's it. And then it gives us a very bare minimum number saying that this should be the size. And if for anything which is above 75 plus units, and then it's open-ended for something which is 75 units and then 500 units, which doesn't make sense.
Another thought is that again, about the parking, there is a lot of requirement to do parking in New York City, right, in the buildings. And we are not happy about that, so I'm still inside. And I think maybe we have an opportunity to propose that the parking entrances be designed in such a way that sanitation vehicle can get in. At least we would have a benefit for those parking lots, and then so many places of parking dedicated to the storage of garbage. And one of the things that would achieve is that, you know, then the people with the loading dock cannot tell you, oh my God, it's my loading dock, because right now it's a parking lot. It's not their loading dock, you know, which I think is a little bit of BS there. So I think pushing to inside, even inside the building, recover parking space, recover the mind space about parking, and redirecting it to, you know, this is space which is not properly used. And you don't have the same energy to measure things here. It would, I think there is, because this is the place where there is space, you know, and that's always the challenge in any parking, even in David's building, he has a big parking. So if people wanted to punch through the wall and use portion of the parking to do the garbage, they could, as long as it was defined. So even for the historical, you know, building where there is a parking, there could be a zoning which says, look, let's take X% of the parking, X% space, and here you go, you got it, right? You have a lot of space. I think one thing that would be helpful to me is that when you show all those things that exist in other cities or country, I'd like to see a matrix where you show the different things, you know, subject or topics or whatever. And then you can show all of them, and then New York City. And then we could see where other people do this, and that, and we do none of it, you know, and it would like capture everything you have proposed here and put it in a very stark contrast of saying, this is like a summary of, this is what you need to, all the things you need to do. Mm-hmm. And then we can talk more about this, the outside. But I'd like to hear from other people what they think.
David, I know you were instrumental in getting this underway.
Yeah, and you know, I'm really happy with the progress that's being made. You know, I think the issue from, you know, for our committee is, you know, what's our action? What's the next step? What's our action item? I mean, you know, writing a letter is fine, but what was discussed at land, as you know, Dale, what was discussed at land use was producing, and Shruti has mentioned, was producing a checklist similar to what's done for restaurants and bars, and that, you know, that checklist would include the kind of quantification that Shruti has mentioned, and then solutions to those quantities, whether within the building or on the, you know, in the parking lane. And that will be that producing that checklist will be a big task, because it's got to be very specific to New York, and it's got to have, you know, quantities in it, and it's got to include DSNY and their input. And, you know, that's, I'm sure Seattle, which is kind of the template that Shruti mentioned, you know, probably spent a couple of years or at least a year anyway, you know, producing a template like that. And now, of course, that template law, you know, and I think what the land use was saying, and I think makes sense, was that we don't try and jump straight to, you know, changing the building code or changing the zoning resolution, but that we produce our own in-house checklist, which we hope will then, you know, gather legs and become infectious, to use a common language.
Right.
You know, be used elsewhere as other things from CB4 have. So, yeah, it's absolutely embarrassing how little New York has done in this realm. And I think Christine it's an excellent idea to, you know, the comparison with parking is a really good one, or the contrast with parking is really, that's highly quantified and trash is not. And then using parking spaces or adding additional parking spaces, I would say, that, you know, that are for garbage. It doesn't have to be a loading dock. You know, I just want to point out, there is a lot of resistance to in-building systems, because, you know, not only because of liability issues, but also because of the union. You know, we have to deal with the fact that the union likes all these bags. They love it. It's easy. They're light. You just toss them. They're used to it. You know, so there's a lot of momentum behind this that we're going to have to begin slowly to overcome.
Mm.
Thanks, David. Do any other committee members have comments or questions about the proposal?
Yeah, they are on the side here. Jeffrey, Brett, Viren.
I'll start with Viren.
Just a couple of quick things. I think I like the idea that Christine just proposed about potentially assigning a parking spot, so to speak, even on street within the parking lane, could solve some of the existing buildings' problems, which cannot be retrofitted for a number of different reasons. But one thing that comes to mind is DOB requires all, as an architect, David would know as well, that DOB requires us to submit builder's paving plan to show them how we're going to take care of sort of water that we're going to collect, and how we're going to discharge it, and the retention tank and whatever have you. Similarly, DOB, Department of Sanitation, could require for new projects to submit the data, quantify, you know, what is required, and that's the first thing that they need to submit along with the builder's paving plan.
So you're saying a DSNY solid waste management plan has to be submitted for high rises?
Yes, for any building I propose today, there are two things I need to do right away. One is, what am I doing, you know, if it is an unpaved area, and if I'm going to put up a building there, how much of water that's not going to percolate how am I going to retain that on site? So the builder's paving plan is required. Number two, energy code requirement. Similarly, we could have an additional item that requires them to show how much garbage they're going to generate, where they're going to collect it, etc.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's not necessarily the purview of this committee, but yeah.
No,
we're doing this jointly, so there's going to be some blurred edges.
Yeah. And a couple of other thoughts quickly, Dale, if I may. Curbside collection, curbside sort of biodigesters. There are new technologies, under sort of the guise of smart streets that many cities are talking about as we speak.
Yeah.
And I think New York has to catch up with the 20.
I mean, I think generally, and I suspect, Shruti, you can confirm this, we're not doing a great job when it comes to, as a city, when it comes to recycling or waste stream management.
That being said, I mean, we've just started organics, which has been started in a lot of other countries and cities since a long time now. So I agree with Viren's point that there's a lot of new technology, and we definitely need to catch up. There's a lot that can be done to simplify what we are doing right now with a lot of technological advancements that could take care of a lot of new things that are parallelly coming. So it's like a backlog that we are addressing as of now.
Absolutely.
And one last quick point, Dale. The city already has some plans for composting, decentralized composting. Similarly, some of these ideas can be woven into those schemes. So I think, last but not the least, interagency sort of coordination and some kind of a plan that city must come up with is totally required now.
Agreed. All right, I'm going to go to Brett and then to Jeffrey.
Okay, thank you. First, wow, I feel like I should be applying for some kind of continuing education credits. Watching this and learning so much, quite amazing. So yeah, I mean, first, New York is at an inherent disadvantage compared to most other major cities. I grew up in Chicago, where there are actually alleys, which is where the trash goes. Don't walk back there at night alone, but your trash is back there, so it's not on the sidewalk. New York just doesn't have anything like that, so the sidewalk is it's the only place to put it. So New York does have this inherent disadvantage. I think your points about data is just, I mean, it's so spot on. It's amazing. Like, we should be able to know how much trash there is, so we can use that to determine how many pickups, how many nights we should, and how much space the sidewalk has, to figure out how often you have to bring the trucks through. Set goals, and if you set a limit to how much trash can go out there, you kind of force the building owners and the landlords to limit how much trash is produced. So even if the city can't create codes that requires building owners to have trash compactors, building owners might have to figure out on their own, I better get a compactor because not everything fits in the allotted space in the limited number of pickup nights. So a data informed approach it should be such an obvious thing to do, and it's just a revelation in what you presented. But so I don't know if we should be requiring compactors, but the bins, I mean, the thing about the bins, it's also a transportation issue on our sidewalks. I mean, how often you walk past piles of trash and you see people collecting, recycling and whatnot. If we had clear bins, at least maybe the people who are looking for the recyclables know which bin to try to, crack the lock on and open up. But the bins also would do a lot for the aesthetics and define the limit of how much trash goes out there. And I guess we'll see how much all the new codes that the city's trying to work on, how they're arranging the separation of trash between commercial, residential, and industrial in city that the city's trying to still figure out. One thing I would wonder, I mean, and Christine, I really appreciate you bringing up the parking spaces. We have established precedent on alternate side parking. Gosh, wouldn't it make so much sense? It goes hand in hand. Put your trash in the street. It gets picked up on the street where the cars are vacated, and then sanitation cleans the street afterwards. I mean, we've already got a precedent. I mean, that's an idea that I think should kind of piggyback. That you just start the alternate side parking rules a little earlier, so the trash can go in the street. That that almost seems too obvious. I mean, because the current concerns I would have with loading dock and service yard types of solutions is that anytime a truck has to penetrate into a building, that's a curb cut. And our committee has long been fighting curb cuts because they create uneven sidewalks, traffic going over the sidewalk. So I don't know if we want to create a precedent of creating new curb cuts or making the curb cuts that exist in the parking for buildings harder to get rid of long term. And the last thing I'll just bring up is we've had, the Parks Committee's had presentations on, was it the Parks Committee, was it here, with the pneumatic tubes under the High Line? So there are some kind of science fiction, futuristic, Jetsons kind of solutions where you put your trash in the pneumatic tube and it gets circulated. And I know that, that committee was I think it was the Parks Committee. We were very supportive of at least trying a pilot on the High Line that was presented to us to see, maybe it's got some traction. That's the kind of thing, maybe keep bringing those sorts of ideas up. What kind of innovation can we get? Because if instead of trucks coming to get the trash, we move the trash to some central collection points using that kind of technology, maybe it's not tubes, maybe one day it's going to be drones, who knows? But I think that's an openness to get the city to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. So, but thank you so much. That was an amazing, fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Sorry for the noise out my window. It was just the trash zone, a trash drone. Okay. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Dale, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, Shruti, for that presentation. I just a couple of questions, I think, for the co-chairs, and then perhaps on the presentation. Is the purpose of us to come up with a recommendation this evening based on this presentation?
I think more than anything, it's to the presentation was given jointly to land use, and much of the presentation is concerns land use items, but some portion of the presentation is within our purview, the sidewalks and also the parking spaces. So, I mean, we can come up with I think the effort is going to be jointly between the two committees.
Sure, I guess I'm just trying to understand we could go around the committee 6 dozen times each person and rewrite the entire way we should be dealing with trash and new building code. And so I guess I want to think about what the transportation purview is this evening if we're going to opine and make a recommendation. So, it sounds like, based on the presentation, go ahead, Christine, sorry.
Yeah, my thought was we get educated, first of all, because that's a great piece of work. Absolutely. And great presentation. And I think we need to be educated. And then just like the land use committee said, let's do something quick. Maybe we say the same thing. We say, okay, what could we do, which is sort of quick? And then think about longer term, right? But maybe possibly, so if we can conclude out of that there is something that we should do quickly, which is not a lot of work, and can move the ball in the right direction, then I would like us to either write a letter or do something about that, so that we can say, okay, this is the foot in the door. This is the first thing we should do, really.
Do we know, Christine, on that note, do we have a really good exemplary high-rise, residential high-rise can we point to one specific example of a residential high-rise that's doing it the way we would like it to be done as an example?
We have plenty of those, but our committee should be really focusing on the street, right?
The street.
No, I was referring to like off-site, like.
No, but I mean, you can talk about Brookfield as a whole area to do it. Related as a whole area to do it. Mima is horrible. The Orion is bad.
Meme is bad, yeah.
So we have bad examples and we have good examples, right? I mean, the good examples are more linked to massive plaza, etc., where there is a lot of a lot of floating docks.
Right.
So I don't know whether
it's not a useful example necessarily.
Right. I don't know whether those examples are really the one that we can rely upon. Maybe Manhattan Plaza is a good example.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's
they do it. So Manhattan Plaza is the one example I know that does it well.
Just to give people if we're saying we'd like to move forward with a series of guidelines for high-rise residential buildings going forward, and outline specific practices, and say one of the, just to give them something tangible, and say one of our neighbors, Manhattan Plaza, does a good job of this.
But again, I mean, having the hat of not the land use right now, but
right.
the hat of the transportation committee, I think we should focus on what can we do about the sidewalk and the parking lane, right? Sure. Because that's how, and then longer term, we could talk about the parking, which is a cross item between land use and transportation. And we could have some suggestion about what do you do once you have an underground parking. What could be some productive suggestion there? So that could be another thing, but that would be longer term in my mind.
So if we're looking for a short-term suggestion from this evening, it sounds like we should recommend something we've been trying to get through in other forms for a while, is dedicating areas on a block for trash to be placed.
But I would even go earlier, I mean, even simpler. I would say the first step should be for sanitation to confirm that if people put their garbage in the parking lane, they are not going to get a ticket. If we could get that done, and we know that they are not going to get a ticket, but it's not in writing, this is like proving that something is not there. Sometimes it's nearly impossible, but that would be the first thing before even we go to the point. If somebody says in front of my building, I want to put it in my parking spot.
I mean, that does not say anywhere in the charter that the trash has to be on the sidewalk.
No, I know, but this is trying to prove a negative, right? And it's
so you would say we should reach out to DSNY and say we're developing some guidelines for high-rise.
I am trying to come up with a solution that we can vote on this evening. That is short-term, knowing that I think we should come back to this from a more long-term perspective. I know there's other folks that want to speak. We also haven't heard from the public as well. And I guess I want to go back and think what the short-term recommendation would be from Shruti or the presentation as something we could do most efficiently.
Colin has had his hand up while we were all, happily yapping around.
I'll go to Colin and then back to Viren.
I wouldn't call it yakking, Christine. I think it was insightful. Shruti, thank you so much for the presentation. It was excellent. I came away very well educated about the different policies to pursue. Somebody mentioned earlier, in my field, it's always helpful to be able to point to other cities that have some sort of best practice. And I know that you mentioned some, cities in your presentation. Something that Jeffrey said in terms of like a short-term recommendation, I wonder if we could recommend that the relevant agency study some sort of, maybe even just start with a study or a pilot of, dedicating one or a couple of parking spaces in front of some of these buildings for some sort of trash corral. I mean, you could be simple, could be fast. And I know that some other cities, maybe in the US, but definitely in places like Spain and Europe, have had great success with that sort of model of trash collection on a block. And I wonder if there's if folks agree with that idea, if that's sort of on the right track. And if so, then maybe you have some good examples that you could share with us. That would be really helpful.
Sure, it's right before the stay-at-home instruction came. I was actually, because I study at NYU, there is something happening at the intersection of 9th Street and 5th Ave where it was very surprising to me when I saw that they had this huge container, which was probably taking exactly as much space as one parking space, and all the waste was actually, even though for that particular case, it was actually stored in black bags, but all of it was actually stored within that container, and there was nothing on the sidewalk. And I saw that happening for almost, I think, 20 days, and I'm sure it might have continued, but couldn't really go there after that. And I have pictures, and it seemed to work great because I've been using that street for 2 years, and it was impossible to actually walk on that street. And that's something that I saw in Manhattan. But apart from that, there are examples that in cases of the examples that we discussed tonight, I know that Rich's standards and even Toronto, in that case, most of the waste is actually collected from the building itself, not letting it come out. So there might be some exceptions, but this is what I know as of now. So I can actually look for some case studies where we know that the waste is actually coming out. And the Paris design alternative that we saw, that for now was actually for local waste, which is from pedestrians. But I do know that there are a lot of interventions happening in different parts of the world where we can actually see some on-street design.
Yeah, I wonder if I could just quickly follow up to that really quickly. And I know, like, it's a great example of some construction sites use big blue bins right out in front. Typically they're on the street. I wonder if, like, if the committee is into that model, if maybe there are some pros and cons in terms of how that intervention might work amongst, a whole block with many, many different units and buildings using it. I mean, I could foresee some problems, but I wonder if maybe you have some better information. And with that, I'll kick it back to Christine.
Well, I don't know whether you saw that David has that. David, as part of CheckPeds, has done an analysis of what's happening on the sidewalk. And, I live in my block, the Garment District. So in the Garment District, nearly all the commercial trash, which is picked up by the commercial carting companies, are put in containers in the street, on the parking lane. So it is happening right now. And what the question is, how do we carry that thing to residential streets? But as far as commercial street, it's happening everywhere. And so this is very bizarre that, for one category of citizen, it's okay, and there are containers, and for the other category, it's not okay, and there are no containers. And you know why? It's because the other category has cars, and they use the parking lane, because on the Garment District at night, nobody is parked there. So we are back to this issue of parking and the conflict between the cars and other uses. And I think, to me, the top priority is to establish that people want to put it out there and they want to do the trade, and then we can organize it on a block, as long as, because we know Hannah from the 45th Street Block Association has contacted 3 different landlords, right, to do that. And everybody, and the managing agents and everybody says, oh, that would be wonderful. And then the landlord say, I don't want to do it, I'm going to get a ticket. So the big problem we have right now is convincing people, having a piece of paper saying, no, you are not going to get a ticket. And if we can get to that, I think the next step is going to be, okay, let's organize a block and let's figure some containers, right? And then we can go and advertise, go to the next level. I mean, so that's my thought about the very, very short-term pragmatic thing to do.
Can I?
Who else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but I think that might be thinking too small. I mean, getting a letter, I'm sure we can get a letter from DSNY. At some point, we'll get a letter from DSNY saying it's okay to, but we've got to think a little bigger than that. I mean, what I imagine happening is that this checklist might be very open-ended in that it says, the checklist for the developers says, okay, you need to quantify your trash. And by the way, I think DSNY does have some formulas that that the developers can use, so they don't have to come up with that from scratch. And then they're going to have a mass. They're going to get a number out of that. Here's how much is going to be produced, 3 times a week or whatever it is, and then they can decide where to put it. If they have or want to capture parking spaces in front of their building with an enclosure of some kind, then that would be part of their plan. If they don't and they want to put it all inside the building, that would be fine too. Or maybe it's even a combination of the two. I don't know. But we could leave it to a developer to design where they put it. And so it's really a combination of land use and transportation, and that solution could be in building or street or both. And I think
it's not sidewalk.
What?
As long
as it's, oh yeah, of course, as long as it's not on the sidewalk. And if it's in a parking lane, it's not just bags dumped in the parking. We don't want that from a developer. We want an enclosure in a parking lane.
Yes, I was talking about existing people, not developers, right?
Containerization, yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about this is for new development. Now, the downside,
I know. I was talking about two things. I mean, I was talking about legacy and new developers. I agree with you. For new developers, you want them to create an enclosure for sure.
Right. But that's really what this is about. I mean, the check beds project is a good one, but I don't know that we should just, check beds can handle that. I don't know that we want to just do the same.
Apparently not.
One disadvantage of this, I should point out, is that, the community board only sees projects that are not as of right.
Right.
And so, that's a problem with affordable, the dictates we've given about, say, for example, putting affordable housing throughout the building rather than, putting it all on the bottom, but, we can only make those dictates, to projects that come through, but, that's where you start.
Well, to be honest, I would have liked to have from the land use committee a memo to city planning saying, we don't understand. How come you are not doing this? And you are spending all your time trying to figure out what cars can go in where. I think there is at least a basic memo to say, you are not focusing on the right things here. And starting the game. We know it's going to take forever, but it's starting the game saying this is not.
Remember, the problem is, I know it's a kind of a land use transportation thing, but I don't know why we couldn't do that. The problem right now is bags of trash on the sidewalk. That's our purview. Okay.
Well, it is, but it's legacy. It's not past. I mean, it's not new buildings. So the problem we have is that the problem we have with transportation is with legacy building. The problem which is being addressed in land use is future buildings. And so we are not, connecting completely here. I mean, everything you are saying for new buildings, obviously, are very, very good. But I would say that I think for new buildings, so that you are going to look on land use only 10% of the buildings, and the other 90%, only the zoning and the Department of Building take care of that. I think we should push the envelope there and have a letter going out and say, look, this is a massive problem. And, you're not doing anything. You need to start doing.
JD wanted to limit this to new construction in land use. So that was his dictate. So
Well, I think we can, as a transportation, we can challenge that and say, look, I mean, I think even if you limit to new buildings, at least address all the new buildings, not just the one coming into our committee.
Do we have other, do we have
Yeah,
other?
I had my hand raised.
Go ahead, David. I think Pete is also flagging, so David and then Pete.
Okay, this is great research. Thank you all for doing this. Christine, I have something that might be able to turn this into a positive rather than a negative in terms of asking Dot about trash in the streets. We can say we want to confirm that that contained trash is allowed in the street. So therefore, and that would be it. We just want to confirm that it's allowed. And if they give yes, it's allowed, then obviously you're not going to get a ticket for it. So I mean, rather than putting it in negative, we put it in a we are just confirming that contained trash is allowed.
Well, that's the way we would have done it, yes.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that would solve the whole issue then.
Yeah.
The landlord's not worrying about it, because if we get a confirmation that, hey, you won't, if this is allowed in the street, then that's the end, no ticket.
Wow, everything.
Pete?
Great presentation, by the way. And it seems to address many of our concerns. But there's a few things that have not been addressed, and or one thing I should say specifically. The noise mitigation on the compactors and the sanitation trucks. I think we have the technology to make them a lot quieter than they are. I've actually worked on some compactors myself, by throwing out garbage for a hotel. Some compactors are better than others, quieter than others. I believe that sanitation trucks can be a lot quieter than that. We haven't pressed them on that. And I think living in the biggest city in the country, I think we should have the right to say, you know, you guys need to do some research, find the technology to make them a lot quieter. I know that battery operated equipment works quieter than diesel driven equipment. So that is something we should look into. Our community has a lot of e-waste, refrigerators, mattresses, and they get picked up quite often on 8th Avenue. But it seems to me that there are too many hours, different hours that they show up. Some show up at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Others show up at 7 o'clock and stay around for 40 minutes or so. Give you an example. I have a hotel that's being constructed adjacent to the building that I live in. And at 7 o'clock, just about every morning, they're there for 40 minutes. The noise is it's unbearable for the tenants. Again, that's coming back to the issue that I think we can get those sanitation trucks to be a lot quieter than they are, and a lot of the compactors. And I think that will solve a great deal of our problems in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Alan is again.
So two quick things. Firstly, I just got a compliment and a thank you from Martha at Fleming House. Her signs just went up this morning for the loading zone, for the no parking loading zone.
Right.
So she wanted me to pass that along and to thank Colleen, DOT, the committee, and everybody who pushed this through. I think this came up in record time. It was just a couple of weeks ago, I remember that we were talking about it. So the other thing, just quickly, Brett brought up the issue of alternate side and garbage and sweeping. And I think the use of alternate side is actually has a negative impact on our environment, because from 9 o'clock till 10:30, whatever the case may be, you have folks sitting in their cars. In the wintertime, trying to keep warm. In the summertime, trying to keep cool, the engine running. Even though the sweeper may come by at 9:15, they have to sit there till 10:30. So perhaps for some future discussion or study, why can't folks move their car at 9:20 and leave after the sweeper has come by. So I just wanted to put that out there. Perhaps that's something the committee can take up at some future time.
Okay.
Thank you. For the sake of the environment
Yes.
Thank you, Alan.
and our time.
Brett is done, right? So that's good. That's it. Anybody in the public?
Do we have any? I think we had a request from Paul. I think it's regarding this presentation. Is this Ginny, is this presentation publicly available as yet, or will it be?
It's not publicly available yet, but we'll be working on it, and then I can send it to you.
Okay, so in answer to your question, Paul, it's pending. Do we have any more other comments, or do we have any resolutions or?
Well, the public, nobody from the public?
Oh, I think Walter. Go ahead, Walter. You need to take yourself off mute.
You're still on mute.
You're still on mute, Walter.
Oh, no. Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say it was a very detailed and impressive report tonight. The one thing that sort of disappointed me was that we were micromanaging something which is an antique operation. Speaking for Penn South, we've been using a compactor and metal carts for over 50 years when they discontinued the incinerators. I forget what year it was, but it's more than 50 years ago. We're now looking for something modern that would replace this old system. Brett beat me to it, but we were starting to think about the possibilities of underground systems, particularly for campus type operations like Penn South, NYCHA, Hudson Yards, London Terrace, some of the other campus type operations in our neighborhood. Unfortunately, just as the idea came along, so did COVID-19, and we haven't been doing anything but concentrating on that. But I really think it would be useful for the community board, not necessarily as part of this project, to make a recommendation to the city that it explore modern development. I believe Roosevelt Island has an underground system actually in operation at this point, if my memory is correct. Other countries have been using it. It's difficult for a landlord probably to put in this kind of system, both because of the needs to have access to more space and the cost. But certainly the city could operate far more efficiently and far more cheaply in sanitation if it got away from the present system and we started exploring more modern approaches. So that's what I would just want to say, if you allow me. I would hope that at some point the community board would ask the city to start studying a more modern approach. And I think it would have been useful if the report tonight would at least mentioned it as a possible approach, even if it isn't possible at this particular time. So at least it would be reminding people and telling people that it's a possibility that's actually in use in any number of places. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Please come back. Walter, come back.
Yeah, oh.
No, I'm just saying come back to the committee, right? You always have so good comments.
Unfortunately, traveling, particularly in bad weather, was becoming difficult. And if you can't do the job properly, I don't believe in doing it. So I was not about to go into a phone operation to be on the community board. You have to walk around the neighborhood and see it and participate. And I was no longer able to do it. I'm getting a little bit older. The 90 is gone already. So, and I'm still active though, but I couldn't help but come tonight when I heard the topic about sanitation.
Thanks, Walter.
Well, thank you, Walter.
Paul, did you have a comment? I don't know if your hand was raised from before.
It's from before.
It was raised from before when we were voting.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. No, I did have a comment. Thank you.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. This is great that we're hearing guidelines for new buildings, but again, back to Christine, I think, we have a legacy problem here in the city that's even bigger than that. It'd be nice if there were modern guidelines for all buildings, even guidelines to guide management of buildings. We're not all union buildings, It's nice to have state-of-the-art guidelines for managing trash in our buildings rather than picking up hints from our neighbors as to what we should be doing. So even if we could codify some of this into guidelines and say, here's what the community board says buildings of different sizes should be doing to manage their trash, and here's what their options are.
That's a good idea.
Spaces for trash would be great. I think it's a great idea. And gee, it'd be nice if we could bring back organics recycling that the city closed down for COVID-19. Thank you. That's all I've asked.
Thanks. Do we have any more other comments on this topic before we move on?
Are we going to, when you say move on, are we going to produce some kind of letter from this? And
Yes, that's what I was hoping we would get to at this point.
Okay.
But David, just to address what Paul just said, is that something that you could do? You have the checklist, right? But could we make like a simplified checklist for existing building, for legacy building?
Yeah,
that we would just distribute, and say, this is what you should be doing, like what Paul was saying.
Yeah, I don't see why this checklist couldn't be, include existing buildings. I mean, it's all the same quantification.
Okay.
Really. The quantification is the same. What's different is the solution.
Right.
The solution options are obviously much fewer. But probably what it's going to come down to is, it's going to establish a number of parking spaces.
Right.
Ultimately,
right.
that will be required for whatever.
Right. So that would be good because it would dovetail with what we are talking in transportation, right? But then we could distribute that to all the buildings in the district and say, these are the guidelines,
But how do we, there's no.
We don't enforce. I mean, forget about enforcing. It's just like.
No enforcement.
Yeah.
It's a suggested set of guidelines, suggested best practices.
Right.
To keep our sidewalks clear.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I would suggest my thought would be to start very small, which is have this letter going and say, confirm that it is okay to put things on the parking lane. A very simple letter like that. And then step 2 would say, we would ask your help to identify parking spots in a given city. And I think that would be enough for the time being. I don't know what else we could do right away. The other things are much longer term, David, unless, David, you have some ideas.
Well, the guidelines that you mentioned, producing that, but
and the guidelines would be another suggestion.
Who is this letter to?
Yes,
the letter would be to both sanitation and transportation.
Yeah.
Where we say, we want you to confirm, please confirm our understanding, blah, blah, blah. And second, please, on one or two block, on one block at least, help us identify, parking spaces.
That could be okay.
Sure.
And maybe that letter should include the fact that we are on our own taking this. We're not asking for their permission, but on our own planning to generate guidelines in the absence of any guidelines coming from you, meaning DOT and DSNY.
Right.
Sure.
Yes.
There's a huge vacuum, and we're going to try and fill it. I think we should state that.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have a motion?
I think that was a motion.
Do we have a second?
Yeah,
Second.
that's right.
And can we suggest that this is done as expeditiously and as respectfully as the signs that were recently put in on 22nd Street by the Department of Transportation, who otherwise doesn't actually move too quickly on our requests. So given how quickly the DOT has proven they can actually move on things,
well, I think the
pretty remarkable.
Right. Colleen, are you there? Still there? Where are you?
Here, I'm listening to you. I mean, send us the resolution and we'll take a look at it. You know, I can't assure you a speedy response in this scenario here because this is different.
Okay.
We can definitely work with sanitation and see what we can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you should know that I went to read all the rules for parking, and it doesn't say that we cannot do it.
I'm sure you did.
Okay.
All right.
We are voting.
So we have a resolution, a joint letter to DSNY and DOT regarding containerized collection off the sidewalks and in the parking lanes. Is everyone on the committee in favor of this letter?
Yeah.
Yes, or raise your hand.
Yes.
Is anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Or anyone present not eligible? Okay, so that letter will be written and brought to the full board. Okay, are we getting this update on the news rack program?
I think your committee's having a discussion about it.
Oh, so there's no update. So just
I mean, just to let you know, two things.
Sure.
The legislation that the committee okay, we had a conference call with Christine and a few other committee members, and you participated in the call regarding our news rack program. And the board had asked us about the legislation, if we can share that. And the legislation is still being finalized, so we cannot, put that out in publicly yet until, it's been put together. And then Christine had asked me to look into DOT street furniture division, if there were any plans or, in the past or future of installing any news racks. So Christine, I'm still working on that, and I'll let you know by the end of this week if there was any proposal to do that, okay?
Okay.
So that will comprise an update as to where, the progress that we've made on this issue to date. Are there any questions from committee members?
No, Alan was in, they are the drivers on that, so.
Yes.
I think we're just waiting for DOT to come back to us.
Yes.
Are there any questions from the public on this issue? I don't see any hands that are currently raised. Okay, we're going to move on to I believe it's the last item. Oh no, that was the last item, or, oh no, I'm sorry. Page, traffic enforcement, okay. Christine, do you want to lead this?
I'm not sure. The NYPD. So we, in view of everything that has happened in the last 2 weeks, I thought our committee should reflect on, the discrimination that we have sometime raised related to traffic enforcement and the behavior of the traffic personnel. And I wanted to open the, everything which has been happening is really, really upsetting. Like 2 days ago, I saw a video of a gentleman who was walking and he tripped over a cop, and then 4 cops jump on him, and so it's just one example after another of behaviors which are so seems so discriminatory and indeed violent and brutal that it's very, and I don't know whether that behavior is applied similarly to drivers and non-drivers, and whether you're Black or white or Hispanic. So I wanted just to open the place, the floor to everybody to give us their feelings and see if there is any recommendation that we can pass on, especially because Viren is heading a committee on police, violence, etc., and discrimination. And therefore we could have a little discussion and then pass it on to Viren for the larger committee.
I would also add that we have noted within our district, it seems that there is a kind of a systemic bias against in addition to other biases, there seems to be a systemic bias against cyclists among the NYPD, and their enforcement practices vis-a-vis cyclists has often been inappropriate. So we're seeing like interactions, police and pedestrian interactions and police and cyclist interactions having a fairly different tenor than other types of interactions, which is concerning.
So you can either yell, scream, let out, and put your heart out, or give recommendation, whatever you want. This is just an open space to discuss.
I see David has a hand up. Warren.
Yes, thank you, Christina. I think that we should somehow put in our opinion that there's been talk of taking traffic enforcement and traffic away from NYPD and giving it to the Department of Transportation. And that's including, also the cycling and the enforcement. There's one thing that I was sort of written somewhere in it, and when I went to police council meetings, I was very uncomfortable. First of all, it's in a precinct house. They're short meetings, and they sing their own praises, and that's all they do, give awards to themselves, sing their own praises. So people would say, oh, go to the police council meetings. That's not an answer, because those police council meetings, it's like their own little propaganda. And are you going to really feel comfortable confronting the cops in a police precinct? I mean, even verbally. So that's why I think that we should strongly emphasize the positive of putting the traffic enforcement and codes under Department of Transportation. Rather than criticizing the police, leave it as the elephant in the room and not discuss what the police have done negatively. We all know that. I don't think anyone doesn't know. So just leave it as the elephant in the room of not even discussing it, and just put on the positive of, let's bring this under the jurisdiction of DOT.
Thanks, David. It's actually, there is, for those who are not familiar, there are some advocates, some transportation advocates who are calling for a change in traffic enforcement to be essentially not an umbrella of the NYPD and become an enforcement arm of the Department of Transportation, which they see as a more neutral potentially more neutral arbiter of traffic enforcement. Did somebody else on the committee have their hand up? Brett?
Yeah, thanks. So just, I'm gonna, not to take away a lot of the conversations. We know there's a lot of data that supports what the protesters have been bringing to light, a lot of really good and important information. So I think that dialogue and that conversation is happening, and it's important, it's timely. Just from the transportation things, I mean, I'm going to speak a little bit opposite you, a little bit down with the bicycles and enforcement. Doing a lot more bicycling around the city, I would say we need a little more enforcement with the bicyclists, because it's a little bit of the Wild West in some areas. We also need more enforcement, and the bike lanes, I think it's just an enforcement thing all around. you know, some neighborhoods are worse than ours. If you're some of the Lower East Side, Chinatown, that area, it is very dangerous for bicyclists because of no enforcement of almost anything transportation related. So, you know, but bicyclists are more vulnerable. So I think it's more about, you know, if we're going to talk about bicycle safety and enforcement issues, part of what I think makes it difficult for police in general to try to have an even hand enforcing bicycle transportation issues is because, frankly, there are just so many bicyclists out there that are flaunting laws. I can't tell you how many times I see bicycles going the wrong way, ignoring red lights. I'm out there, I see it. So that, you know, I don't know if there's a different kind of interaction because I don't see the data. So yeah, you know, I don't know.
Well, okay, I'm just going to try to distinguish. My point wasn't exactly like the police aren't doing enough enforcement of cyclists who are scofflaws. My concern is that the nature of the interaction between police officers on the ground and cyclists on their bikes or stopped we have seen many examples of escalating and too often violent confrontations between police and cyclists. That is my concern. So I'm not saying we shouldn't enforce cycling. I'm saying that I hate the idea that that a cyclist's personal safety would be risked by the enforcement practices of those in charge of enforcing the laws.
Okay, yeah, I mean, look, I think that goes for all police enforcement. I mean, it's, you know, right now it's very tense. You know, I'm just, frankly, I know people on
there
side.
seems to be a demonstrated long-term bias against cyclists. Every time we see accident reports, the police seem very quick to blame cyclists
and
pedestrians as well. So there seems to be some in addition to other biases which we're not really equipped or is our purview to address, there seems to be some implicit systemic and perhaps cultural biases against cyclists among police departments.
Okay. I mean, I personally, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't see the data how much, but
right. Well, I'm just drawing based on the evidence that I've seen over many years of looking at these situations in our district.
So are you talking? Is there a report or data, or are you just talking about videos that go on YouTube?
No, I'm not talking about videos that go on YouTube. I'm talking about, like, for instance, recent crashes where there were police statements put out that immediately blamed cyclists. In fact, unfortunately, the police departments had to be told, do not make statements in that circumstance when the investigations have not yet concluded, because your presumptions are usually incorrect, and usually they're predisposed towards blaming the cyclists. And we've seen that over and over again in our district. You were here for many of those.
No, but Dale and I had to meet with the police, with the traffic police, and with some of the precinct to specifically tell them that you know, their communication was inappropriate, and they were, as Dale says, escalating the anxiety of everyone. Because if you start and the first thing you say is like, okay, it's better to say we don't know, and then you don't raise the anxiety of everybody. So this is something that we have seen consistently over the last 2 years, and which has been really stressful. Viren.
Yeah, just very quickly, just a little clarification. It's not a committee that we are sort of running, it's a social justice.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a working group, yes.
It's a working group. The reason why it's a working group is because it's a platform for people to express their opinions about how they feel about not only just the police in the city, but also, you know, basically space and race issues And how does it make you feel occupying the city space, which otherwise is considered to be public space? It's a space for protest and expressing your opinions, depending on your color, the color of your skin, your various different sort of factors, how you feel treated. And that's what the conversation is about. But just to add to the sort of conversation that we're having in this committee, I think policing and enforcement of streets and public space is extremely important in the light of what is going on currently. And right to the city is extremely important. One quick item that I would put on for this committee to sort of consider is surveillance of streets and public spaces. And that is something that we do not have enough information about. We don't know what kind of surveillance systems are in place and who does the reporting and what happens with that data. So going back to Brett's question about do we have enough data about police confronting bike riders, that would be one place where we can find out, either from the police precincts or some other means of acquiring the data. That would be very helpful. In light of the protests, a lot of protesters are on bicycles, and that is one of the reasons why I personally feel that we see increased confrontation between police and bikers. And it's the same scenario where everyone is treated as if each one of them is a criminal, and that is problematic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sharon. Do we have any other comments from the committee?
I've had no problems with the police on my bicycle, but I'm white. So
Here you go.
It's that whole proving a negative thing again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if this is where I bring up the thing I wanted to talk about in new business in terms of the police blockading their precinct blocks on 54 in the Midtown North on 54th Street between 8th and 9th. We're going on 2 weeks of an absolute blockade of the block, French barricades from building face to building space. This is at the Midtown North, Midtown South, also at the 10th, I believe. There's documentation. It's across 16 precincts in Manhattan. This is, yeah, so under the city charter, the police are allowed to close a street for 48 hours without any notification and can just do so in the case of an emergency. If it goes on longer than 48 hours, they're required to tell the DOT commissioner. If it goes on longer than 5 days, they're required to notify the community board and the council member. It's my understanding that none of that has happened in any of these precinct houses across town. This
Jeffrey,
is
not only
to.
Yeah, sorry, Jeffrey. Not only that, people are being asked when they come back to their homes, they're being stopped and asked.
Right. So they've
including
it's not just that, they've taken city bike docks out of commission. They've completely blockaded the block. Businesses have been directly and negatively affected by this. And it is with complete disregard for the idea that their purpose is to serve and protect, but it's seeming like they're just there to fortify and defend, which is ironic.
Pete.
Yeah, recently I had an experience myself. I had to, somebody tried breaking into the apartment building. They broke the glass in the entrance door. The person that broke in at about 4 and 4:15 in the morning, apparently the police released him. He came back that same day, about 8 o'clock in the evening, and decided to continue what he started. Lo and behold, I did find out at that point in time that the police did come in the morning about 4:15, and they apprehended the person and then they released him. I went to file a report that same day, about 10 o'clock that evening. And when I went to the police precinct, much to my surprise, you cannot walk in.
Is that the 10th?
54.
The one at 54th Street.
Oh, right.
And I asked to file a report, and they said, at first I explained it to a policeman who was standing outside, and he was screening me, and I'm saying, I'd like to file a report. This is what happened in the building. And he said, wait a minute, you got to, let me know what's going on in the building. I said, okay, this is what took place. At about 3 or 4 minutes later, someone else came out, and I explained to the person the very same thing. It turned out to be a verbal altercation because I said, I like to file a report about the break-in in the building. And the tenants in my building live there, and they were pretty much afraid because this is the third time he tried that, and you guys released him. It turned out that they didn't want to let me in, and I just got almost a verbal attack by one of the policemen there. And I asked, I said, excuse me, sir, I sit on the community board, and I like to have your name and your badge number. At that point in time, he calmed down a bit, and I explained to him, I says, listen, you have to listen to my frustration. This is our building. You guys came in, you released him, and he was out in the streets. I have a picture of the person, and you guys are not doing anything about it. So that's my experience. The following day, the landlord, or I should say the super, went to file a report, and lo and behold, he told me that he couldn't go into the precinct to file a report. And so anyway, just to let you know that we don't know what's going on. That's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
And how do we file a report? How do we communicate our situation to the police and expect them to hear us and hear our frustration, and then they take it as though we're making an attack on them at that point in time? I said, excuse me, don't take it personal. I said, just listen to my frustration. We have to deal with this, but you just guys sit around standing up there and you don't do very much about this. And so I'm just letting you know. So if you hear my frustration, it's because of what I'm going through and what the tenants are going through in my building. Right. It doesn't faze them at all to them. I'm sorry. That's just my experience within the last month and a half.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that.
But try filing a report. You may not be able to get into the building, the precinct building. I think this is all across. They will not let you go in.
Yeah.
And they were not wearing masks.
So should we have like a letter talking about, I don't know whether it's a letter or what, but I mean, one part of the letter is about moving the NYPD to traffic to DOT. And another part of the letter is about, or it's two separate letters, I think. The second letter is about what's up with the, refusal to protect the community and, refusal to comply with the rules.
Do you think, Christine, it's a letter to say we have noted the continued barricades around the 4 police precincts in our district?
Yeah.
And at the same time,
and not only it's that, but it has a lot of impact on the residents, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But beyond that, by the way, people are not allowed to get in the precinct to do reports of crime.
Yes. So that's one letter as concerned.
One letter.
The barricading and the lack of service during this period.
And I think the second letter is about moving the traffic division from NYPD.
Who is that letter directed at?
That's Corey and the mayor.
Okay. All right. Do we have?
There is one other issue that I noticed about a week ago. I think you've seen this also. Where you have unmarked cars driving down avenues in the opposite direction, traffic. I've seen that quite a lot, and it's a convenience for them or to them, but it's very dangerous for the oncoming traffic. Again, I've seen this on 10th Avenue.
On 10?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's just emblematic of a police force that flouts civilian oversight.
I think they are out of control right now, but that's what it is.
I mean, and that's the attitude that they convey, and I think people are really frustrated because of that, because they see that.
Right.
they think they can go on and carry on the way they are, and it's just
So
not.
we have. Can somebody make a motion?
I want to make the motion, but just a quick thing. First of all, the Department of Transportation prior to Rudy Giuliani was controlling most of the traffic enforcement. But if somebody, I don't know the research, but if someone can use examples of other cities that it's working well, where their Department of Transportation is handling the traffic, that might be a good thing to include in that.
I think I agree with you, David, and the letter that we will write, which I'll probably lead, is will account for the history of traffic enforcement in the city and look to other models as well.
Okay, I make the motion, by the way. So does anyone second it?
To the city.
Second.
So that's a letter to the city council and to the mayor to look at removing traffic enforcement from the purview of the NYPD and creating an enforcement arm of the DOT in order to address traffic needs. So should we vote on that letter?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Any present not eligible?
And what about the second letter?
And the second letter, we need somebody to propose as well. That's not me or Christine.
Jeffrey.
I'm sorry, the one about the station houses, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that we should not just say the 4 in our district, but the precincts that serve our district. The 17th, which serves sort of eastern Chelsea, that one is blockaded also. So if somebody needs to go it's about access and it's about guarding it. So I think we should say the 5 precincts that serve our district have all been blockaded and are limiting, public access completely to their block.
They are not
and it's in direct violation.
Wait a minute, there are only 4 precincts that serve us.
I'm sorry, you're right, 4. I apologize. The 17th, the 10th, Midtown North and South.
And the 13th, right?
13th, 10th, Midtown North, Midtown South.
Yes, 13, 10, North, and South.
I keep saying 17, sorry about that.
Mute your phone. I think it's.
And that it's in direct violation, this action is in direct violation, which is very clearly outlined in the charter.
Yes.
And it is, and we have seen it lead to a lack of service provided to residents in dire need.
And obstructing the residents and the business, right?
Yeah.
All right. So is that, did we have a second on that?
Second.
Seconded.
Second.
So
Okay.
all in favor of that letter, which will go to.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
This is Martin. Martin, you have to turn off your mute because we can hear all the sound.
Aye.
Martin is in favor.
Okay.
Brett is opposed. Were there any present not eligibles?
Oh, wait, I didn't write that down. I have to write that down.
I don't believe there are any present not eligibles, but I think we had 1 opposed.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll put it in. This is item 4.
Yes.
Where
And
is
then
item 4, Brett is is against. No. Okay. Then what are the new businesses things?
Can I ask actually just a question related to that letter? Are bicyclists allowed through those barricades? I don't understand. I have been turned away.
Nobody is.
Yeah, okay.
Only if you live on that block.
Okay, I was very confused by the regulations. It was very unclear. One blockade let me through on my bike and the others didn't, but good to know.
You know, the bicycles are only good to push back demonstrators.
Yeah, they only serve one function.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, so we have open street update. There is nothing to report. Hopefully next week we will have a new batch, and if Paul is still on, you may be on that batch, but I'm not sure. And I've been begging to get an update, but I can't get it. And finally,
21st Street is being very well used. Just want you to know.
21st,
Yeah. Between 9th and 10th, very well used. Yeah.
Well, it's the NYPD. That's their block. That's their request.
No.
Yeah. They requested it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
I thought we did that.
No.
Oh, okay. All
They
right.
requested
Okay,
it.
I'll give them credit for that then.
Right. And finally, status of new sidewalk extension. So last month we discussed those 4 sidewalk extensions that we want to do, that we paid for. I mean, we paid for the study at 17, 26, 42nd, I'm sorry, 43rd and 45. And the new glitch into the process is that in order to get those sidewalk extension, which is just painted on the side on the road, the DOT requires that they have a partner who provides insurance and who provides snow removal. So we have a very generous bid. The Meatpacking District, which has volunteered for 17th Street. And then for the other 3, we don't have a bid, which is a problem, right? So, so there's 2 things. First, I think that we are going to have a nonprofit is going to take care of the insurance. But more importantly, I wanted possibly to write a letter to DOT saying that this process is absurd and very discriminatory, because if you are in an underserved neighborhood, well, you are not going to get anything done. Or if you don't have a bid, you can't get anything done, which means that only 1% of the city is going to get those, net downs, which are really for the purpose of safety, so that's wrong. So that's my new business.
I'm just baffled by this. How is it that DOT can require this little bit of pavement for insurance, but not the sidewalk, not another?
No, they do require, that's the whole problem, is that the sidewalk is maintained by the.
So the sidewalk is maintained by the property owners, and this was transferred many years ago because what happened is that DOT was getting sued for disrepair sidewalk. So City Council passed a legislation which transferred the repair or the responsibility and liability to property owners. The issue with neck downs, just like with the public plaza, it's a piece, an extension onto the roadway. So we would need a maintenance partner, as Christine mentioned, for the snow removal and the garbage removal, as well as if there are going to be planters, maintenance of the planters in that space. And in the past, and what we have been doing is that if there's no maintenance partner, we can't take that risk in creating an extension or a neck down at the corner without there being insurance or without there being a maintenance partner.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify the bid position and why a bid, taking my hat off like the one I'm the executive director of, can do. The bid with it in its contract with the city is responsible for clearing curb cuts for the sidewalk step off. So this is really simply, we do this anyway, that this neck down is happening. It's part of our contract that we're required to do it because of the way we handle clearing snow. We already have to make sure the crosswalk that you can actually cross it, which is actually a step further than what property owners are required to do.
And keep in mind, the neck down is a tight space. It's not like sanitation can remove the snow in that area or pick up garbage in that area. We need someone who can do that for us.
And then I just want to add, with my community board hat on, I don't think that's okay. I think that the city should not be requiring bids to be servicers of neck downs. This is something very straightforward and simple for a bid to do, but there's no reason whatsoever the city should not be able to provide this very basic service.
Exactly. So, for example, if
DOT
this
doesn't have the resources to do that.
well, if the city installed a bike lane and the bike lane goes in front of the sidewalk and it's really adjacent to the sidewalk, the city doesn't require everybody to write an insurance. When the city does a pedestrian crossing, they do not require anybody to write an insurance. So it's really making no sense. And you know what, and I understand your position, but I think it needs to be changed. That's all. I think the city council need to change that and put the responsibility of the maintenance back on the.
We have a sister agency that removes the snow in our bike lane, which is the Department of Sanitation. That's why the bike lanes are a certain length. I mean, you know, they're like 11 feet and they have to be that way so that the sanitation.
Yeah, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
You know.
You are putting up a good front, but I'm not buying any of it. I think this is.
You never buy anything.
This
I can't sell anything to you.
This is totally, as David says, it's baffling. And how do you expect to have, you know, safety for all the neighborhoods if we can't do that? I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, this is totally.
What about the Doe Fund? Do you have the Doe Fund in your district?
That doesn't cover the insurance, though.
Doesn't cover.
Right. The Doe Fund would be an option, but you know, no, you need somebody like me who is going to go around and figure those things, right? 90% of the population is not interested in figuring those things.
Remember the pedestrian plaza when we installed them and there was, you know, everyone was taking interest in planting and taking care of the roadbed? I mean,
not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah.
So anyway, I would like to have a motion for asking that this thing be changed. And definitely, I think this is a prerequisite because I think it's discriminatory and it's really slowing down the safety improvements in the city.
Christine, can I just
happy to make that motion? Sorry, Colin.
Right.
I just want to. That came to my mind too. I just want to underscore and reiterate something that you just said, which is that I think that this is a matter of equity.
Yes.
Many parts of the city that, you know, need and deserve neck downs and more safety improvements, and they are not getting covered by a bid.
Right.
And I mean, even Chelsea is, you know, parts of Chelsea aren't, but I'm talking about, you know, areas of town that definitely need, like, where this is a big deal. So
yeah, so the toolkit of the DOT has a bunch of things, but then if you can't install them wherever people are, colors, diversity, etc., then it's a built-in, you know, discrimination.
Of course.
That's terrible, and I think.
Can I give you an example? Just a quick example. We were working with another bid, and I'm not going to name the bid, but we were working with another bid at a location to do an extension near a subway, and it made sense because the sidewalk was very narrow. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't do anything because the bid's budget has been cut or reduced because of COVID. And because we don't have the bid as a crazy, we can't proceed. Just an example.
We need to fight this battle. I think this is a good battle and it needs to be fought, and it just doesn't make any sense. And it's the result of a multitude of decisions which are all logical by themselves, but at the end, the result is completely wrong. So I think we need to raise it. Do we have a motion?
And I think if we can make sure there's a mention of the fact that it's an undue burden just on bids, because if the city was to put this in and not confer with the bid population, it would just be expected to be rolled into their contract, you know, without question. Right. So it works in the situation on 17th Street because we already provide that service, and it's not above and beyond what we already do. But I think that, again, it's the equity factor on sort of both ends of it, if you will.
I second the motion. Somebody already proposed the motion. I second it.
Can I make a?
From which locations you don't have a maintenance partner for? What are the locations?
Say that again.
What are the locations that you don't have a maintenance partner? I know it's 17.
25th, 43rd, and 45th.
25th.
Well, CheckPads is going to take care of that, but you know, I sent you the note.
What are the locations you don't have a maintenance partner, you said?
Yeah, 26, 25, 43rd, and
45th.
And 45th.
Okay, thank you.
But I mean, you know, in the meantime, CheckPads will take care of that. So I don't want anything to be slowed down. I will arrange for that, but hopefully we can get out of that after 1 year or something like that.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to this letter? Or maybe not necessarily add it to the letter, but just a comment about it. You know, the part of the problem is if you just say this, you know, if you just make the lack of equity argument, you know, they could say, well, okay, we just won't do neck downs. I mean, we'll make it equitable. We just won't do them. You know, really the crux of the issue, I mean, I understand why using the equity argument is good, particularly these days, because it's timely, and I think that's fine. But, you know, the crux of the real argument is, you know, the sidewalk is a continuum of transportation, of traffic, with people on their, you know, by foot. It's really conceptually no different than, which is kind of what you were alluding to, Christine. It's really conceptually no different than you know, a bike lane, which is a continuum of people on bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the cars is a continuum of cars. There's no reason in the world that each individual owner should be required to maintain that any of these continuums. They're communal, they're public. It's a completely irrational. So, I mean, I think that, which, you know, I know I'm preaching to the converted, but
well, you want to add that into the letter? You want to ask for the sidewalk to be transferred back?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean,
it is. You
know, all they have to do to answer the letter you're proposing is to say, okay, this is a pain in the ass. You can't find anybody to take care of them. We just won't do them.
So what's the resolution now? What's the motion? Is that Jeffrey?
Yeah, sorry, I was chuckling at David's summation there. Neck downs should not require a maintenance partner to be installed, you know, given that they're really an extension of the sidewalk.
And are we adding that the maintenance of the sidewalk should go back to the city?
I think that's a very slippery slope. To a certain extent, the city already does it, and they bill the property owner. If the property owner is issued,
they don't.
If it's tied to other work.
Properties, we would do that, but for commercial properties which are 4+, they are responsible for their sidewalk. We would not repair their sidewalk.
Yeah,
it's only residential properties we would do that and build them.
Some residential property, not all of them.
Not all, yeah.
Yeah. So that's another discrimination, because, you know, if you have a house which is like whatever, 4 apartments or 4 family house, then the city repairs, but everything else they don't.
But they charge for it.
Huh?
They bill you for it. They charge for it. The building owners have to pay for it.
Even if it's a 4-house apartment? No, it says 4-house apartment, you don't. A house with 4 apartments, the city repairs for it. Yeah.
I worry that the sidewalk thing takes us away from the crux of this letter, which is about neck downs.
Okay.
And I know
Right, so we have to have another discussion for that.
But yeah.
Okay.
I think we should try to keep the scope narrow here, given the success of the identified intersections, and that this is the sticking point of the city.
Okay.
So I guess it's a short it's a short letter. They should not require a maintenance partner to be installed.
Or or insurance.
Is that a letter?
Or insurance.
Is that a resolution, that letter that we have a second on that we should vote on?
Seconded.
It's been
I had seconded.
Okay, it's been, so shall we vote on that letter? We're writing a letter to the DOT about neck downs and the requirement of a maintenance partner.
And we should CC our electeds, of course.
Well, obviously,
Yes. All in favor of that letter?
yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed? Rob is in favor. I don't see any. Thank you, Rob. I don't see any opposed. Any present not eligible? Is that you, Jeffrey?
I think that the scope of the letter, since it doesn't define any like conflict with meatpacking, I'm very comfortable voting yes on this letter and don't see a reason to be P&E.
Okay. All right. So that's that resolution. Is there any other new business, old business?
That's it.
Okay. It's been a robust.
Yes.
Yes, Miriam.
Oh, Miriam was.
When, how can I speak out? I tried to participate earlier when somebody raised the issue. Am I on? I don't know.
Yes.
You're speaking, Miriam.
When somebody was speaking about the bicycles, I brought this up in several settings. This setting, I spent today at getting vestibular therapy. That means that I get very dizzy. I was hit by a car. I don't want to see the bicyclist now as threatening me. I am very much in support of the open streets. I was participating at the city council. I am a member of Transportation Alternatives, Auto Free, all of that. But what I see is that the bicyclists are emboldened, some, not all obviously, by the clear streets. They're going through the lights. I've almost been hit a couple of times. I am not the only one. I'm a member of Hudson Guild, the senior center. There's a lot of talk there. I have brought this up, and I am also part of various disability activist group. The concern is that they're not stopping at the lights. They're just zooming through. I sometimes have to wait for myself to cross till it's green again, until I see no bicyclists for a block or two and I'm safe to cross. I've almost been hit a couple of times. I have fallen. I am frightened. I do not want police intervention at all, but what can we do to get the message out about street safety? And the bicyclists have to also not go on the sidewalk and not go through the lights. A lot of people are affected. There was an incident a few weeks ago in Central Park where a bicyclist was, a jogger was hit by a bicyclist, and I watched some of the discussion in Transportation Alternatives about how to reposition the lights, which were meant for cars. What can they do? There's a discussion. That's Central Park. That's a slice of our world. I live in the street. I live in Chelsea. I don't feel safe. I don't want the police to intervene. I've actually spoken to the police, and I said, do you see that? Yes, we do. We're not supposed to do anything about it. When we were back in the other world, the security guard on my street, which is where PS 11 is, as she was hit by a bike. They did have somebody there, I think from the police department, who's no longer assigned. He was hit by a bike. What can we do to change? This has become the new normal. I don't know if it's all over the city. I know I see it all the time in the areas that I walk around in Chelsea, the Village, Uptown, and so on. What can be done? And how is this going to be addressed?
I want to take a shot at that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel very bad for you because you know, when you, first of all, it's very annoying, and
it's endangering. It's not
it's
annoying. It's not safe. It's not safe.
It's not safe. I think having the traffic section of the NYPD moving to DOT would make a huge difference there, because there needs to be a different protocol to deal with the cyclists, where there is a lot of education in that protocol, and there is restorative justice. So it's it's not, you know, it's not an arrest, or it's a respectful intervention. And I think if we had that organized differently, that is a problem that could be resolved, or not resolved, but certainly worked on. And while today with the police where they are and their attitude into how they want to enforce things is really, it's kind of, you know, all or none. They go after them completely, or they don't.
I couldn't agree more. I am one of the people who testifies at the MTA, get the cops out of the subway. They shouldn't be going after the homeless, the fare beaters. I agree. I don't want NYPD intervention, but I do want some way of addressing this.
And
if it's the DOT, if we can re-educate also the bikers. It's not everyone, but I have, and I've said this when we met in person back in the real world, that I've stood in front of my street for 5 minutes and counted about 10 bicycles going through, and that's when there were much less bicycles. I see very few bicyclists stopping at the lights, and if I can get to them, I thank them, and some of them say, well, of course, it's the light. And I did speak to somebody, just as an example, who from Transportation Alternatives. I'm part of the people who are in the traffic violence group. I was hit by a taxi. And she said that she used to go to the lights if there was nobody, no pedestrians. But when she was on vacation, she saw in New Mexico, she saw people stopping at the lights, whether there were any pedestrians in view. And she said it was like another norm. And right away, people got the message. It's
Right.
like the norm has to be changed. We are having a new normal with a lot of bikes, and they're going through the lights. Most of them. I would really say most of them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think that's going to take a big lift to change the culture, and having the right organization to do it is the right way to do it.
One thing I can add that's about policy is bicycles are part of the transportation network, and more so, and especially as more infrastructure is put in place to keep bicyclists safer and hopefully everyone else safer. If a person's in an automobile, can't drive an automobile without a license. People have to take courses, have to get educated, pass a test. So when they're driving, the state has basically said, we authorize this person with the license, we're licensing this person to operate an automobile. Something similar probably should be in place for bicycles, especially in the city now that the number of bicyclists are so much more than it used to be. And as
which I applaud.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I think we probably could and should be advocating for our electeds to start supporting. So that way, if a person does get ticketed, if a person is flagged by an officer, they have a license, they have a more established driving record. And so that way it's hopefully easier to take the bad bicyclists off the road. When a license is suspended, the consequences are steeper, et cetera. So I think that's one of those things that, I don't know if our committee wants to take up something like that, because it's a wider citywide issue, but that's something I think should be an inevitability. I don't know who's pushing for it these days.
Yeah, let's take it on later. I think it's an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, Dale.
So
Done. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
we're here a second.
Second. So moved.
Thank you all.
You all very good.
Robust meeting.
And everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi all.
Bye bye.